Hey you guys, what's up? Welcome back to She's Black and She's Hungry. This is my first video and this is my attempt at making a vegetable soup that I found on Pinterest. So first thing I'm doing is getting everything together, cutting up my veggies, which is just 2 small onions that I had and 3 carrots that I picked up. So quartered the onions and then peeled and cut the carrots. After everything was peeled and cut, then I added it to a pot of boiling water that had some salt in it, and I added the carrots, the onions, and for a little extra pizzazz, I added a little bay leaf. I decided to serve some fried tofu with the soup, so all I'm doing right here is pressing my tofu like a quick press. I don't actually do the whole thing like you're supposed to, and since this was just for 2 people, I didn't use the whole block, so I just cut it in half and put it in a to-go dish with some water and stuck it in the fridge for a later time. After that, I went ahead and sliced my tofu in half and set that aside so that I could go ahead and add my greens to my soup. Since I was using kale, I wanted it to cook down a little bit, so after I tested how soft the carrots were and saw that they were actually getting to a point where I could blend them up, I went ahead and added my kale to it so that I could have them cooking down. And then after that, I added a little bit of, I don't know, I call it soup dust. I don't know what it's actually called. It's like a green top and it's just like chicken broth. You add it and it's powdered, you add it to water and it turns into chicken broth. I don't know the correct term, but I will add a link to it somewhere wherever I post this at. And after I stirred everything up, I added the top back and let that do what it was going to do. While that was simmering down so that I could get it blended, I went ahead and cut up my tofu and seasoned it so that it could be marinating, ready for when I got ready to fry it. So after I just diced it up into some cubes, I don't know how big they were, they just, whatever size felt right is what I cut them into. I seasoned it with some soy sauce, a little bit of sriracha, some garlic powder, and some lemon pepper. And then I just mixed that up together and set it aside and went ahead and cleaned my counters, because one thing we're going to do in this house is have a clean counter to work with. After that, I went ahead and got out my blender so that I could go ahead and get ready to blend my soup. So all I did was fish out the really big pieces of carrot and onion that I had with a little bit of the kale so that it had a mixed texture. One thing that I did learn though was that I probably shouldn't have quartered my onion. I should have halved it. So don't do what I did, do better. After that, I got a spoon so that I could add a little bit of the broth to the vegetable so that it would blend nicely. And then I just slapped the top on and blended up until it was a smooth-ish puree to a texture that I thought I would like. And then once that was done, I just added it back into the broth and stirred everything up. And there was a little soup still left in the blender, so I just got some water to rinse it out and add it back into the rest of the soup, because we don't waste food around these parts. So once I was added back, I just stirred everything together and went ahead and got my seasonings out. So I encourage you to season things to your own liking, but the things that I added were salt, rosemary, oregano, and a little bit of basil. And once I had those things added into it, I just stirred it up and went ahead and put the top on it while I did a little cleanup. After that, I went ahead and added in a can of cannelli beans because I wanted to be a little bit more filling than what I saw in the original recipe. So I just added in a can of that, stirred it up, and once it was all mixed together, I just put the top on it and set it aside so that it could kind of simmer and cook together. After that, it was time to cook my tofu, so I grabbed my cast iron skillet, I added a little bit of olive oil to it, and I grabbed my tofu, added a little bit of sesame oil because I just like the flavor of it. So after that, I just made sure that my oil was spread all around, because cast iron skillet and tofu, I don't want anything sticking to the bottom. And once my tofu was added, I just let that brown on each side and flipped it around occasionally so that it could get cooked evenly. And once everything was done, I added it back to a bowl and set it aside. After that, I added 2 eggs to the same cast iron skillet and fried those over easy. And once they were done, I put everything together. I made some rice off screen and added it to it, and this was the final result.